If you have to keep resuscitating a certain relationship, then it's probably over. I want you to pay attention in life to historically in your connections when you kept trying to restore life to a very dead situation. And how do you know it's a situation that's met its demise? Well, you're either having to mentally prepare yourself, okay? You feel aimless with the relationship. You're feeling frustrated. You're feeling resentful. You're also feeling disconnected and lost, okay? One way to know it, there have been times in old connections where I realized when the phone rang, for example, I didn't feel the way that I used to. And when I used to get excited about seeing that person's name pop up on my phone, now it's hollow, okay? Or sometimes my stomach would sink. And let's say there was a transgression that happened that took place and it was resolved. There was something different about the connection now. Or when it came to reaching out, maybe I was the one that was always reaching out. Or maybe they felt that way with me. Okay? But instead of the relationship feeling like it was mutual and like it was a flow to it, it felt like, you were going into the winter and you just had to pray that the car would start at least this time. Or it probably wouldn't start at all, but you were still willing to try, sit in that cold and let the engine turn over until you just realize, oh, well, I'm late for where I needed to be. And also, this car doesn't work, but I don't want to let it go. But why is that? Why do we continue to hold on to things that we recognize have died? Well, because it's a familiar hell, okay? I can exist in this dysfunction versus trying something new. And a lot of times it's the sunk cost fallacy. You'll realize most people will stay in relationships, friendships too, not because the relationship is healthy, but because they've been in it for so long. And the idea of giving something up at this point makes no sense. You will hear people say, it's like, well, we've been friends for this long, or we've been together for this long, or that's my family. So I can't really abandon ship now. Says who? And if you look at the historical evidence of the relationship up until this point, a lot of those years probably weren't healthy. That was you turning the other cheek, or them turning the other cheek, right? Being passive. And again, resentment building up over time. Versus actually taking a good look and taking an inventory and at least having an audit on what the relationship or relationships were. See, more often than not, we keep trying to resuscitate something that's dead because we think starting over is the scariest thing to happen to us. Ask yourself, well, what does starting over look and feel like in theory? Well, it's scary, it's unknown, right? What's going to happen? How do I know this next situation won't fail? What are people going to think of me? Am I making the wrong choice? Well, what if things get better tomorrow? Another indication, and this is really important, is when something has died out. And again, you can apply it to friendships, you can apply it to partnerships, you can apply it to just people, even in the workplace, is when you start creating a highlight reel, right? If you ever listen to somebody talk, I've heard people say this to me, like in my client work, but also just in person. And they'll say, well, we had a good week, right? We had a real cool week. It's like, okay, how long have you guys been together? How long have you guys been friends? Oh, well, 5 years. How many weeks can you count were good? Well, there was that one time, and there was this other time. The fact that I can remember these small moments is a pretty big deal, because what it's telling us is that these were isolated incidents. These were outliers, okay? These were deviations from the actual pattern, the actual history of this connection up until this point. And the moment you start doing a highlight reel is you are trying to convince yourself to stay. because the idea of leaving is so uncomfortable, right? If you're in a marriage or a relationship, it's like, well, what does separation look like? What do I have to do? Okay, what is that going to look like? Oh man, just the thought of that seems like too much. So maybe it's not so bad, right? Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm being dramatic. I'm probably being too sensitive. Yeah, it's fine. And it's fine yourself for years, okay? Okay? You can find yourself for days, and then it becomes years, and now you've become resentful or a shell of a human, all because you were afraid of looking at the reality. See, sometimes when we are continually trying to resuscitate something or reanimate something, we're taking our own life source. Because think about how much work, how much oxygen you're trying to pump into this person, right? Or this relationship. That's life, that's exhaustion, that's fatigue. To still have it kind of on life support. That's emotional tax. And one of the only reasons why we are doing it a lot of times is because the discomfort that comes with accepting it means that we now have to change. We now have to do something. We have to make the shift. And sometimes we're waiting for other people to make the decision for us. Because, well, I don't want to be the bad person. I've heard people say, well, yeah, I never end friendships. Or, yeah, I don't lose friends. And for me, that's always interesting. Because when you look at how they navigate in those relationships, it seems very passive. Like, you probably never lose friends, but you never deepen the bonds either. You keep people in certain spaces, and everything is kind of copacetic, but it never goes beneath the surface, because going there is when it gets real. Going there actually has responsibility. And going there actually has a certain level of discomfort where you may realize, oh, this relationship isn't held on to anything. Okay? Sometimes your denial of what's dying is also preventing you from living properly, and also preventing you from having more lively relationships. Okay? So I want you to pay attention to how you've been operating lately and what you have been breathing life into and why. Who is it for? What are you afraid of? What will one action look like? Or what does it feel like to even think of ending this thing? Okay? And we have to realize when we are pigeonholing people in our lives or taking up space in another person's life who we are not looking to necessarily do life with in the healthiest way, we are blocking their growth. We're stealing from them, but we are also stealing from ourselves. Especially when we know and feel that it's not working. And when another person is not reciprocating, that is not an invitation for you to continually try harder, especially if up until this point, you feel burned out, you feel unresolved. You don't even feel safe. Sometimes the best way to take care of other people as well as ourselves is to take a leave of absence. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other.